I'm 31, male, software engineer in Denver, Colorado. This happened last week, and I'm still processing the absolute chaos that unfolded. I never expected one text message to turn into a multi-week saga that would involve lawyers, family drama, social media warfare, and enough plot twists to make a soap opera writer jealous. Background. I dated Cassandra, 29F, for about 2.5 years. We met at a coffee shop in downtown Denver back in early 2022. She was studying for her nursing boards. I was working on some freelance coding project, and we bonded over our mutual addiction to caffeine and late-night study sessions. The relationship started great. She was funny, ambitious, gorgeous, and seemed to share my values about honesty and communication. We moved in together after about 8 months. Split rent on a nice 2-bedroom apartment in the Capitol Hill area. She was in her final year of nursing school at Metropolitan State University, and I was working remotely for a tech startup based in Austin. Life was good. We talked about marriage, kids, buying a house together. I even started looking at engagement rings around our 2-year mark. But then things started getting weird around July of last year. Cassandra joined a study group for her advanced clinical rotations. The group met twice a week, supposedly to go over case studies and prepare for their board exams. The main organizer was this guy Marcus, 28M, who Cassandra described as super smart but kind of awkward. She'd come home from these study sessions talking about how Marcus was struggling with some of the material and how she was helping him understand pharmacology and patient care protocols. At first, I thought it was sweet. Cassandra had always been the type to help struggling classmates. But then the study sessions started lasting longer. What used to be 2-hour meetings turned into 4-hour affairs. Then they started meeting on weekends too. Emergency study sessions before big exams. When I'd ask about other people in the group, Cassandra would get vague. Oh, you know the usual people. Sarah, Jennifer, Marcus, sometimes Kevin if he's not working. But when I met Sarah at a nursing school social event, she mentioned she dropped out of the study group months ago because it was just Marcus and Cassandra most of the time anyway. That's when my gut started screaming. I tried to bring up my concerns gently. Hey, it seems like you and Marcus spend a lot of time together. Are you sure there's nothing there? Cassandra exploded, accused me of being controlling and jealous, said I couldn't handle her having male friends. She gave me the whole speech about trust being the foundation of relationships and how disappointed she was that I would even suggest such a thing. I backed down. I loved her and I wanted to trust her. But the weird behavior continued. She started getting texts at all hours that she'd quickly hide. Her phone, which used to sit casually on counters and tables, suddenly had a passcode and never left her sight. She'd take study calls in the other room. When I'd walk in, she'd quickly say, "Oh, I have to go," and hang up. The final straw came when she told me she was going to visit her sick grandmother in Kansas for a long weekend in August. Her grandmother lived alone and needed help with some medical appointments after a minor surgery. I offered to come with her, but Cassandra said it would be too stressful with a stranger there, and her grandmother was very private about her health issues. Something felt off. Cassandra had mentioned this grandmother maybe twice in 2 years. I didn't even know she had family in Kansas. But again, I wanted to trust her. She left on a Friday morning and was supposed to come back Sunday night. But Sunday evening, she called and said her grandmother had taken a turn for the worse and she needed to stay through Tuesday. Then Tuesday became Thursday. The story kept changing. First, it was a reaction to medication. Then it was complications from the surgery. Then it was just that her grandmother was scared and needed emotional support. When she finally came home Thursday night, she seemed different, happier, but also guilty, like someone who'd done something they knew was wrong but had enjoyed it anyway. That's when I made the decision that probably saved my sanity, but definitely complicated my life. I hired a private investigator. I know how that sounds. I know it seems extreme, but I was going crazy with the gaslighting. Cassandra was so convincing when she called me paranoid and controlling that I started wondering if I was the problem. Maybe I was being unreasonably jealous. Maybe I was seeing things that weren't there. The PI, a former police detective named Ron Martinez, was recommended by a friend who'd used him during his own messy divorce. Ron was professional, discreet, and unfortunately, very good at his job. I hired him to follow Cassandra for 3 weeks in late August and early September, just to either confirm my suspicions or put them to rest once and for all. What he found was worse than I'd imagined. The study sessions were real, but they weren't happening at the library or in group settings like Cassandra claimed. Ron documented multiple instances of Cassandra going directly to Marcus's apartment after telling me she was going to group study sessions. She'd stay for hours. Sometimes she wouldn't leave until the next morning. The sick grandmother in Kansas trip? She never left Colorado. Ron followed her to a romantic bed and breakfast in Boulder, where she spent the weekend with Marcus. He had photos of them checking in together, holding hands as they walked around downtown Boulder, sharing intimate dinners at expensive restaurants. But the most damning evidence was the paper trail. Ron somehow obtained, legally, he assured me, copies of receipts and credit card statements. Cassandra had paid for a couple's massage at the Boulder Resort Spa. She'd bought lingerie at Victoria's Secret the day before the trip. She'd charged romantic dinners, wine tastings, even a hot air balloon ride to her credit card, all while telling me she was taking care of her sick grandmother. The text messages were the final nail in the coffin. Ron's report included screenshots of months of explicit conversations between Cassandra and Marcus. Love declarations, sexual content, I won't repeat, plans for their future together, discussions about how to handle the Jake situation when the time was right. In one particularly brutal exchange, Marcus had written, "When are you going to tell him? I hate sneaking around like this." Cassandra had replied, "Soon, baby. I just need to figure out the logistics. Jake's name is on the lease, and I can't afford the apartment on my own. Give me a few more months to get my finances sorted, and then we can be together openly." I was a financial convenience, a placeholder while she figured out her exit strategy. When I got Ron's report in early October, I felt physically sick, not just because of the betrayal, but because of how convincing Cassandra had been, how she'd made me feel crazy for noticing obvious red flags, how she'd turned every conversation about my concerns into an attack on my character. But here's the thing, I didn't confront her immediately. I was hurt, angry, and honestly, a little curious to see how far she'd take the lie. We were supposed to be looking at engagement rings that month. Would she really let me propose while she was planning a future with someone else? Instead, I started documenting everything myself. I took photos of the PI report and stored copies in multiple locations. I screenshotted the receipts and text messages. I even bought a small recording device and started documenting our conversations, especially when she'd lie about where she'd been or who she'd been with. The gaslighting continued. Every time I'd ask about her day or mention that she seemed distracted, she'd accuse me of being controlling or paranoid. She'd flip the script and make me feel guilty for not trusting her. She was so good at it that sometimes I'd find myself apologizing for bringing up perfectly reasonable concerns. In November, I finally started pulling back emotionally. I stopped initiating conversations about our future. I stopped being as affectionate. I started making my own plans without checking with her first. Cassandra noticed the change and ramped up her manipulation tactics. Suddenly, she was more attentive, more affectionate, more interested in spending time together. She'd plan romantic date nights and talk about how much she loved me and how excited she was for our future. It was like she could sense that I was slipping away and was trying to reel me back in. But it was too late. The damage was done. I couldn't look at her without seeing those text messages. I couldn't kiss her without thinking about where her mouth had been. Every "I love you" felt like another lie. We finally broke up in December. I didn't tell her about the PI or the evidence I had. I just said we weren't compatible anymore and that I thought we wanted different things. She cried, begged me to reconsider, suggested couples therapy. She played the part of the heartbroken girlfriend perfectly. Even during the breakup conversation, she maintained the lie. She swore that Marcus was just a friend and that she was hurt that I'd let my jealousy destroy our relationship. She said she'd been looking forward to spending the holidays with me and was devastated that I was throwing away something beautiful over my insecurities. I almost felt bad. Almost. The breakup was relatively clean. We were both on the lease, but Cassandra couldn't afford the place on her own, so I agreed to keep paying my portion through the end of the lease term if she found somewhere else to live. She moved out over Christmas break while I was visiting my parents in Phoenix. For the next 8 months, I had zero contact with Cassandra. I blocked her on social media, deleted her number, and tried to move on with my life. I dated casually, focused on my career, bought a new mountain bike, started rock climbing. I was actually doing pretty well. Then, last Tuesday happened. I was working from home, debugging some particularly stubborn code when my mail carrier dropped off the day's delivery. Mixed in with the usual bills and junk mail was an elegant envelope addressed to me in calligraphy. The return address made my blood run cold. Thompson Rivera Wedding, Denver, Colorado. I stared at that envelope for probably 5 minutes before opening it. Inside was the most beautiful wedding invitation I'd ever seen. Cream-colored cardstock with gold foil lettering. Cassandra Marie Thompson and Marcus James Rivera request the honor of your presence as they exchange vows and begin their journey as husband and wife. The wedding was scheduled for this past Saturday at a fancy venue in downtown Denver. Black tie optional. Reception to follow. But here's the part that made my jaw drop. Tucked inside the invitation was a handwritten note on matching stationery. Dear Jake, I know this might seem strange, but you were such an important part of my life for so long. Despite how things ended between us, I'd really like you to be there for this moment. I've included you as my +1, since I don't have anyone else I'm close enough to invite. It would mean everything to me to have you witness this new chapter. I hope you can find it in your heart to celebrate with us. With love and gratitude, Cass. I read that note 3 times before the full audacity hit me. She wanted me to watch her marry Marcus. The same Marcus she'd sworn was just a study partner. The same Marcus she'd been cheating on me with for months. The same Marcus she'd planned a future with while lying to my face every single day. And not only did she want me there, she wanted me as her plus one. Because apparently, she didn't have anyone else close enough to invite. I sat there staring at this invitation for probably 20 minutes, cycling through every emotion imaginable. Anger, disbelief, hurt, confusion. But mostly, I felt this weird sense of vindication. Here was proof that everything I'd suspected was true. She was marrying her affair partner, exactly like I'd thought. That's when I remembered the folder in my filing cabinet. I pulled out all of Ron's documentation. The photos, the receipts, the text messages, the timeline of their affair. Everything was meticulously organized and dated. I spread it all out on my dining room table and just looked at it. Then I grabbed my laptop and started doing some research. Marcus had a public Instagram account with tons of photos from the past year. I scrolled through his posts and found their relationship timeline according to social media. Their first official couple photo was posted in January, about a month after Cassandra and I broke up. The caption read, "New year, new love. So grateful to have found my person." But I had evidence of them together romantically dating back to July of the previous year. I kept scrolling and found their engagement announcement from February. Marcus had posted a photo of Cassandra showing off her ring with the caption, "She said yes! I can't believe I get to marry my best friend and the love of my life. Cassandra stuck by me through the hardest parts of nursing school and made me want to be a better man. Can't wait to start forever with you, baby." The comments were full of congratulations from friends and family. But what really got my attention was Cassandra's reply to her own engagement announcement. "You saved me from settling for less than I deserved, Marcus. I can't wait to be your wife and start our real life together." Settling for less than I deserved. That phrase hit me like a punch to the gut. I was apparently less than she deserved, while she was lying to me, cheating on me, and using me for financial stability. I took screenshots of everything and added them to my evidence folder. Then I found Marcus's profile and clicked on his information. He worked at Presbyterian St. Joseph Hospital in the ICU. He'd graduated from the same nursing program as Cassandra. And according to his relationship status, he'd been in a relationship since January. So according to Marcus's version of events, they'd gotten together after Cassandra and I broke up. Just like Cassandra had always claimed. I made copies of everything. The PI report, the photos, the receipts, the social media screenshots, everything. Then I sat down and wrote what I thought was a very reasonable message. "Hi, Marcus. I don't think we've officially met, but I'm Jake, Cassandra's ex-boyfriend. I just received a wedding invitation, and I think there are some things you should know about the timeline of your relationship with your fiancé. I'm not trying to cause drama, but I believe you deserve to know the truth before you make such an important commitment. The attached documents might interest you." I attached everything and found his email address through the hospital directory. Then I hovered over the send button for probably 10 minutes. Part of me wondered if I should just let it go. Cassandra wasn't my problem anymore. If Marcus wanted to marry a cheater, that was his business. Maybe they deserved each other. But then I thought about how convincingly Cassandra had lied to me. How she'd made me feel crazy for trusting my instincts. How she'd painted me as the villain in her story while she was the one betraying our relationship. If she could lie to me that convincingly for months, she could lie to him too. And maybe she already was. I hit send at 11:47 p.m. on a Wednesday night. Then I closed my laptop, poured myself a whiskey, and tried to go to sleep. My phone started buzzing at 6:23 a.m. Thursday morning. Unknown number, but I knew immediately who it was. "You psychotic piece of shit. How dare you try to ruin my happiness? Marcus knows everything, and he doesn't care. You're a stalker and a creep. I can't believe I ever loved someone so vindictive. You're going to pay for this." Then about 2 hours later, the tone completely changed. "Please call me. We need to talk. I can explain everything if you'll just listen. This isn't what it looks like. You're ruining my life over a misunderstanding." I didn't respond to any of it. I screenshot every message and added them to my growing documentation folder. But around noon, my work phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. "Jake? This is Marcus Rivera. Can we meet somewhere? I need to ask you some questions about what you sent me." His voice was shaky. He sounded like he hadn't slept. "Sure," I said. "Where do you want to meet?" "There's a coffee shop downtown, the Grind Coffee House on 16th Street. Do you know it?" "I can find it." "When?" "Now? If that's possible? I need to understand what I'm looking at." An hour later, I walked into the Grind and immediately spotted Marcus. He was sitting at a corner table, still wearing what looked like hospital scrubs. There was a manila envelope on the table in front of him. My envelope. Marcus looked exactly like Cassandra had described him. Tall, thin, kind of nerdy looking, with wire-rimmed glasses and brown hair that needed a cut. He also looked like he was about to throw up. "You must be Jake," he said when I approached the table. "That's me. You okay, man? You look rough. I've been up all night going through this stuff. He gestured to the envelope. Can you walk me through some of this? Because either you're an incredibly elaborate psychopath, or my fiancé has been lying to me for over a year. I sat down and ordered a coffee. Then I opened the envelope and started explaining the timeline. These hotel receipts, Marcus said, pulling out specific documents. The weekend in Boulder, she told me she was taking care of her sick grandmother in Kansas. That's exactly what she told me. But she was with me. We went to that bed and breakfast. She paid for everything. Said she wanted to treat me to a romantic getaway before her clinical rotations got too intense. I showed him the private investigator's photos from that same weekend. Pictures of him and Cassandra checking into the hotel together, walking hand in hand through downtown Boulder. Sharing a romantic dinner at an upscale restaurant. Oh my God, Marcus whispered. She was dating both of us at the same time. For months, I confirmed. And these text messages. He pulled out printed screenshots. She was telling me she loved me while she was still living with you. Apparently. I didn't know about you until much later. Marcus stared at the photos spread across the table between us. His hands were shaking slightly. She told me you were controlling and jealous, he said quietly. That you couldn't handle her having male friends. She made you sound like this possessive, borderline abusive guy who was holding her back from pursuing her dreams. What did she say about how you two got together? She said nothing happened between us until after you guys broke up. That we were just friends and study partners until she was free to pursue a relationship. She said you were so paranoid about our friendship that it contributed to your breakup. I showed him the date stamps on all the evidence. These photos are from July and August. We didn't break up until December. Marcus went pale. We got engaged in February. She's been planning this wedding for months. The venue, the dress, the flowers. He put his head in his hands. Oh God, what have I done? You didn't know, I said. She lied to both of us. But I should have questioned it. Some of the things she said about you never quite added up. Like, she'd tell me stories about fights you guys had, but the way she described your reactions seemed extreme. Like maybe she was leaving out parts of the story. I thought about all the times Cassandra had come home from seeing Marcus and picked fights with me over nothing. How she'd twist innocent comments into accusations and then run to Marcus for comfort. She was probably manufacturing those fights. I said, creating drama so she'd have an excuse to run to you for emotional support. Jesus. Marcus rubbed his temples. I feel like such an idiot. Don't. She's really good at manipulation. She had me convinced I was the problem for months. We sat in silence for a few minutes while Marcus processed everything. Can I ask you something? He finally said. Sure. Do you think she actually loves me? Or was I just convenient? I thought about those text messages where Cassandra had discussed using me for financial stability until she could afford to leave. I honestly don't know, man. But I don't think someone who truly loves you would build a relationship on lies. Marcus nodded slowly. I need to confront her about this. That's your call. Just be prepared for her to deny everything and try to turn it around on you. It's what she does. Will you testify to this if I need you to? For legal stuff, I mean. We've got vendors, deposits, all kinds of financial commitments. Absolutely. Everything I sent you is documented and verifiable. Marcus stood up and shook my hand. Thank you. I know this probably wasn't easy for you to send, but I needed to know. I wish someone had told me sooner, I said. Good luck, Marcus. Update 1. Holy shit, Reddit. I thought that coffee shop conversation would be the end of it. I figured Marcus would confront Cassandra. They'd either work it out or break up, and I'd never hear from either of them again. I was so wrong. Thursday evening around 8 p.m., my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Cassandra standing on my porch with two older people I'd never met before. A man and a woman, both probably in their late 50s, well-dressed, looking very serious. I opened the door but kept the chain lock engaged. Jake, please, we need to talk, Cassandra said. Her eyes were red and puffy, and she was clutching tissues. Who's we? I asked. These are my parents, Robert and Linda Thompson. Mom, Dad, this is Jake, my ex-boyfriend. Her father stepped forward. He was a big guy, probably 6'2", wearing an expensive suit. Son, you've caused quite a mess here. My daughter's wedding is in 3 days, and now the groom is having second thoughts because of some misunderstanding you've created. It's not a misunderstanding, Mr. Thompson. It's documented evidence of a months-long affair. Linda spoke up. She was smaller than her husband, with the same blonde hair as Cassandra, but her voice was sharp. Jake, honey, relationships are complicated. Sometimes people develop feelings while they're in transitional periods. It doesn't make them bad people. Transitional periods? I couldn't keep the incredulity out of my voice. She was living with me. We were looking at engagement rings. That got a reaction. Cassandra's face crumpled and she started crying harder. Jake, please, she sobbed. I made mistakes, okay? I know I hurt you, but I love Marcus. This wedding, it's everything I've dreamed of since I was a little girl. Then maybe you should have thought about that before cheating on both of us. Robert's demeanor shifted. The fake politeness disappeared and his voice turned aggressive. Now listen here, son. Do you have any idea what this wedding has cost our family? The deposits alone are $15,000. The venue, the catering, the flowers, the photographer, none of it's refundable this close to the date. That sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. It becomes your problem when you're the one causing it with your vindictive little stunt. I looked directly at Cassandra. Is that what you told them? That I'm being vindictive? I told them you were always jealous of Marcus, and now you're trying to sabotage my happiness because you can't stand to see me with someone else. I held up one finger. Give me just a second. I went to my desk, grabbed another complete copy of the PI report, and came back to the door. I handed it through the gap to Linda. Ma'am, your daughter invited me to be her +1, to watch her marry the man she was cheating on me with for 6 months. These photos are timestamped from last summer, 6 months before we broke up. If anyone's being vindictive here, it's not me. Linda took the folder and started flipping through it. I watched her face change with each page she turned. Cassandra Marie, she said slowly. What is this? Mom, he hired a private investigator. He had me followed like some kind of criminal. Because you were acting like one. Robert grabbed the folder from his wife and started reading. Jesus Christ, Cassandra. Hotel receipts? Text messages? You told us Jake was controlling and possessive, and that's why you broke up. He was possessive. I couldn't help myself. Possessive enough to expect my live-in girlfriend not to sleep with other men? Yeah, guilty as charged. Linda was staring at a photograph of Cassandra and Marcus in what was clearly a romantic embrace. You said you didn't start dating Marcus until after you and Jake broke up. It's complicated, Mom. No, Robert said, his voice getting louder. It's not complicated. It's simple. You were cheating while living with this man, while he was paying half your rent and talking about marrying you. It wasn't like that, Cassandra wailed. Then what was it like? I asked calmly. The three of them started arguing among themselves. Cassandra was crying and trying to explain how she'd fallen out of love with me and couldn't help developing feelings for Marcus. Her parents were demanding to know why she'd lied to them about the timeline and how this was going to affect the wedding. I just stood there listening to this family implode on my doorstep until a neighbor peered out their window to see what the commotion was about. You all need to take this conversation somewhere else, I said. It's not my problem anymore. Like hell, it's not your problem, Robert snapped. You created this mess. No, sir, your daughter created this mess when she decided to cheat on me for months and then invite me to watch her marry her affair partner. I just shared some information. They eventually left, but not before Robert said, This isn't over, son. Not by a long shot. Update 2. Friday morning, I woke up to missed calls and text messages from numbers I didn't recognize. 17 missed calls and 43 text messages, to be exact. Apparently, Cassandra had given my phone number to various wedding vendors, family members, and friends, telling them I was somehow responsible for last-minute cancellations and that they should contact me about penalty payments and rescheduling fees. The messages ranged from confused to angry to downright threatening. This is perfect day catering. We understand you're the one requesting cancellation of the Thompson-Rivera wedding scheduled for tomorrow. We need written confirmation of your authority to cancel and detailed information about penalty payments. Our contract requires 72-hour notice for cancellations. Hi, this is Blooming Beautiful Flowers. Someone called our emergency line last night saying the Thompson-Rivera wedding is off and specifically blamed you for the cancellation. This is very unprofessional, and we need to speak with the actual client immediately. Jake, this is Pastor Williams from First Presbyterian. I got a very disturbing call from someone claiming you destroyed a wedding out of spite. I don't know what's going on, but involving the church in personal drama is unacceptable. But my favorite was from the wedding photographer. Jake, this is David from David Chen Photography. I got a very strange call at 3 a.m. from a hysterical woman claiming you destroyed her wedding out of spite and demanding I sue you for her lost deposit. I've been doing wedding photography for 15 years, and this is a new one for me. What's the story here? Also, do you happen to know if the Thompson-Rivera wedding is actually canceled? I'm supposed to be there tomorrow, and I have no idea what's happening. I called David back first since he seemed the most reasonable. David? This is Jake. I got your message about the Thompson-Rivera wedding. Oh, good, you called back. What the hell is going on? That woman sounded completely unhinged. I gave him the abbreviated version of the story. David laughed. Oh man, I've seen some wedding drama in my day, but this takes the cake. For what it's worth, you probably saved that guy from years of misery. I hope so. Is the wedding actually canceled? As far as I know, yes. The groom called me yesterday afternoon and said there wouldn't be a wedding. Very apologetic. Said he'd still pay my cancellation fee even though the contract doesn't require it. Seemed like a decent guy. He is. He got caught up in her lies just like I did. Well, thanks for clearing that up. And Jake? Good for you for telling the truth. Took guts. Around noon, Marcus called me. It's off. he said without preamble. The wedding's officially off. I'm sorry, man. I know this can't be easy. No, you're not sorry, and you shouldn't be. I spent all day yesterday trying to give her a chance to explain herself. How'd that go? Exactly like you predicted. First, she denied everything, said you'd fabricated all the evidence somehow. When I pointed out that I was literally in the photos with her, she switched to saying the evidence was real, but taken out of context. Out of context? Yeah. Apparently, our entire relationship was emotionally supportive rather than romantic, and all those text messages saying she loved me were just expressions of deep friendship. I couldn't help but laugh. Did she explain the hotel room? Oh, that was the best part. She said we shared a room to save money, but nothing happened. We were just platonically supporting each other through stressful times. When I asked about the couple's massage and the lingerie purchases, she said I was perverting innocent gestures. And you believed that? For about 5 minutes. But then I started thinking about all the little things that never quite made sense. Times she was unavailable when she said she'd be with you. How she always seemed to know exactly what to say to make me feel like I was rescuing her from something. She's good at playing the victim. Too good. When I kept pushing for honesty, she finally admitted that, okay, maybe there was some emotional overlap between your relationship and ours, but it wasn't technically cheating because she'd emotionally checked out of your relationship months before anything physical happened with me. Emotional overlap. That's a new one. Right? Right? And then, when I said I needed time to process everything and think about whether we could move forward, she completely lost it. Started screaming about how much money her family had spent on the wedding. How I was destroying her life over ancient history. How everyone would blame her for the cancellation. What did you say? I told her that if she wanted to marry me, she could start by being honest with her parents about what really happened. Stop blaming you for destroying something that was built on lies from the beginning. And she refused, said it would humiliate her unnecessarily, and that her parents didn't need to know the details of our private relationship. She wanted me to tell everyone that we'd just decided to postpone due to pre-wedding stress and that we'd reschedule once things calmed down. She wanted you to lie to cover up her lies. Exactly. That's when I knew it was really over. If she could lie that easily to everyone else, how could I ever trust her to be honest with me? There was a long pause. Can I ask you something, Jake? Sure. Do you think she's capable of change? Like, if she got therapy or something? I thought about it for a minute. I think she'd have to want to change first, and that would require her to acknowledge that her behavior was wrong. From what you're telling me, she's still in full denial mode. Yeah, she kept trying to make me feel guilty for throwing away something beautiful over a misunderstanding. Even at the very end, she couldn't admit that what she did was wrong. I'm sorry, Marcus. I really am. This whole situation sucks. Don't be sorry. You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. I just wish you'd told me sooner. I didn't know you existed until recently, and honestly, I wasn't sure you'd believe me. I probably wouldn't have if you hadn't had all that documentation. She's very convincing when she wants to be. Update 3. Saturday was supposed to be the wedding day. Instead, I spent the morning fielding increasingly unhinged messages from Cassandra and her family members. From Cassandra, I hope you're happy now. You've destroyed everything I worked for. Marcus won't even talk to me. He blocked my number and changed his email. I'm telling everyone what you did. Everyone will know you're a vindictive psychopath who can't stand to see his ex happy. My family is devastated. My grandmother flew in from Florida for nothing. I'm taking you to court for harassment and stalking. What you did was illegal. You'll pay for this, Jake. I promise you'll pay. From her mother, Linda. Jake, I understand you were hurt by what happened between you and Cassandra, but destroying a young woman's wedding is cruel and unnecessary. She made mistakes, but she's learned from them. The whole family is devastated. We had relatives fly in from all over the country. Everyone is asking questions, and Cassandra is too upset to explain. I hope you can live with yourself, knowing you've caused this much pain over something that happened almost a year ago. From her father, Robert. You've cost our family over $30,000 in non-refundable wedding expenses. Our attorney says we might have grounds for a lawsuit. This constitutes harassment and intentional infliction of emotional distress. You deliberately waited until the last minute to maximize the damage. That shows premeditation. You're going to pay for what you've done, one way or another. But the real entertainment started on social media. Around lunchtime, Cassandra posted a long, rambling Facebook status about how her jealous, controlling ex-boyfriend had sabotaged her happiness by spreading lies and manipulating her fiancé with fabricated evidence. The post was several paragraphs long and painted me as basically a stalker who couldn't accept that she'd moved on. According to her version of events, I'd become obsessed with destroying her new relationship and had manufactured fake evidence to convince Marcus that she'd been unfaithful. She claimed that Marcus had fallen for my manipulation. and called off their wedding based on doctored photos and falsified documents that I'd created out of spite. The comments section was initially full of supportive friends and family members expressing outrage on her behalf and offering to deal with me in various creative ways. But then Marcus showed up. His comment was simple and devastating. Jake didn't lie about anything. Cassandra, he showed me documented proof that you were cheating on him with me for months while we were both in relationships with you. Every single piece of evidence he provided was real and verifiable. Stop lying. The comment section went silent for about 10 minutes. Then Marcus posted his own status with receipts. He shared several of the photos from the PI report, with sensitive details blurred out, screenshots of text messages between him and Cassandra, and a detailed timeline of their relationship versus what Cassandra had told everyone. His caption read, "For everyone asking what happened to our wedding, I discovered that I was unknowingly the other man in my fiancé's long-term affair. Jake did me a favor by showing me who I was really about to marry. The wedding is off permanently." That's when Cassandra's carefully constructed narrative completely fell apart. Friends and family members started commenting with questions and demands for clarification. Her college roommate wrote, "Wait, so you were dating both of them at the same time? That's not what you told me happened." Her nursing school classmates began sharing their own stories about Cassandra's flexible relationship with the truth. One girl wrote, "I always wondered how Cassandra could afford that Hawaii vacation while she was in nursing school and supposedly struggling financially. Now I know she had 2 boyfriends paying for her lifestyle." Another comment that really stood out was from someone who claimed to be Marcus's sister. "Thank God you found out before the wedding, Marcus. I never liked her, but I kept my mouth shut because you seemed happy." Something always felt off about her stories. But the most damning comment came from someone I didn't recognize. "She did the same thing to my brother in high school, dated him for 8 months while secretly seeing his best friend. Then when she got caught, she played the victim and said both guys were pressuring her and she couldn't choose." Some people never change. By Sunday morning, Cassandra had deleted her Facebook account entirely. Update 4. Monday brought a whole new level of crazy. I was working from home when my doorbell rang around 10 a.m. Through the peephole, I could see a guy in a suit holding an official-looking envelope. I'd been served. Cassandra and her parents were suing me for intentional interference with contractual relations, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and invasion of privacy. They were seeking $50,000 in damages plus attorney fees. I immediately called my lawyer, Tom Harrison, who I'd used for some real estate transactions in the past. Tom read through the complaint over the phone and started laughing. "Jake, this is about as frivolous as lawsuits get. You can't sue someone for telling the truth with documented evidence. They'd have to prove that what you shared was false and that you knew it was false when you shared it, since they've already admitted that everything you provided was accurate. So I don't need to worry? Oh, you'll need to respond to the lawsuit, but this will get dismissed pretty quickly. If anything, you might have grounds for a countersuit for harassment and abuse of process. Filing frivolous lawsuits to intimidate people is illegal. What about their claim that I interfered with their contractual relations?" "With who?" "The wedding vendors. You didn't contact any vendors. You didn't tell anyone to cancel anything. You shared truthful information with someone who had a right to know it. That's not interference, that's honesty." That afternoon, things got even weirder. My HR department called. "Jake, this is Patricia from HR. I got a very strange call today from someone claiming you've been using company resources to stalk and harass employees at other companies. She said she was considering filing a complaint with the state licensing board." My boss, Sarah, called me into a video conference an hour later. "Jake, I've known you for 4 years. You're one of the most ethical people in this office. But I need to ask you directly. Did you use any company resources for personal surveillance or investigation?" I explained the entire situation, including the timeline and the fact that I'd hired the private investigator with my own money, on my own time, over a year ago. Sarah shook her head. "So let me get this straight. You hired a PI with your own money to investigate suspected infidelity in your personal relationship. You found evidence, didn't act on it at the time, and only shared it months later when your ex tried to manipulate you into attending her wedding to her affair partner?" "That's correct." "And now she's claiming you used company resources to stalk her?" "Apparently." Sarah laughed. "Jake, if anyone actually believes you're capable of stalking or harassment, they don't know you at all. You're the guy who apologizes when someone else bumps into you." She paused. "However, I do need to document this conversation for HR purposes, just to cover our bases. Don't worry about it affecting your job, but please keep me updated if this escalates further." "Will do. Thanks for having my back, Sarah. Always. And Jake, for what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. That guy deserved to know what he was getting into." Update 5. Wednesday brought the most satisfying development yet. Tom called me with updates on the lawsuit. Jake, you're going to love this. Cassandra's attorney withdrew from the case. What? Why? Apparently, he did some basic due diligence and realized his clients had lied to him about the fundamental facts of the case. When he found out that everything you shared was documented truth and that Cassandra had actually invited you to the wedding as her plus one, he decided he didn't want anything to do with this mess. So the lawsuit is dropped? Not officially yet. They have 30 days to find new representation or the case gets dismissed automatically. But here's the kicker. I sent them a letter explaining that continuing this frivolous lawsuit could result in court sanctions and attorney fee awards against them. I also mentioned that filing false complaints with your employer could constitute defamation. Think they'll back down? I'd bet money on it. No competent attorney is going to touch this case. They'd be risking their reputation and potentially facing sanctions for filing frivolous claims. Thursday afternoon, I got a call from Marcus. Jake, I owe you dinner, man. Hell, I owe you a car. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. I just shared information you deserve to have. I've been talking to a therapist about everything that happened, and she's helped me realize just how manipulated I was. Cassandra had me convinced that all of her relationship problems were because of other people. Her controlling ex-boyfriend, her demanding professors, her critical parents. I was always the hero rescuing her from someone else's unreasonableness. That's a classic pattern with manipulative people. Right? My therapist called it triangulation. Cassandra would create drama between me and you without you even knowing I existed, then position herself as the victim caught in the middle. She was good at it. Too good. I went back through our text messages from the beginning. Anytime you and she had problems, she'd run to me for emotional support. She'd show me screenshots of arguments that seemed to prove you were being possessive or controlling. But now I realize she was probably provoking those reactions. That hit me like a ton of bricks. I remembered so many fights that had seemed to come out of nowhere. Times when Cassandra would pick apart innocent comments or turn casual conversations to arguments about trust and commitment. She was manufacturing conflict, I said. Exactly. And I fell for it completely. I thought I was saving her from an unhappy relationship. Turns out I was just the escape plan. Don't beat yourself up about it. She fooled me too, and I lived with her. The worst part is how she reacted when I confronted her with the evidence. Even when faced with undeniable proof, she couldn't just admit what she'd done. She kept trying to minimize it, rationalize it, blame other people for misunderstanding her actions. Sounds about right. My therapist says that level of denial and blame shifting suggests some pretty serious personality issues, like clinical level stuff. I'm not surprised. Normal people don't maintain elaborate lies for months without showing any signs of guilt or remorse. Have you heard anything from her since the weekend? Just threatening text messages about lawsuits and revenge. Her parents tried to sue me, but their lawyer dropped them when he realized they'd lied to him about the facts. Marcus laughed. Good. You don't deserve any of this blowback. You were just trying to help me avoid making a huge mistake. I hope it works out for you, man. You seem like a good guy who got caught up in a bad situation. Thanks. And Jake? I know this probably sounds weird, but would you want to grab a beer sometime? I feel like we've been through something together, and I'd like to buy you a drink. Sure. I'd like that. Update 6. This weekend marked 2 weeks since the wedding that wasn't. The fallout has been extensive and entertaining in equal measure. According to mutual friends and social media stalking, I'm not proud, Cassandra moved back in with her parents after Marcus kicked her out of their shared apartment. She's been telling anyone who will listen that she's the victim of a conspiracy between her psycho ex and her weak fiancé who couldn't handle a real woman. Her nursing school friends have apparently distanced themselves from her after Marcus shared the evidence with several people in their program. Turns out, Cassandra's reputation for drama and questionable ethics was already somewhat established in their small cohort, and this situation confirmed what many people had already suspected about her character. Linda, Cassandra's mother, sent me one final text on Friday. I hope you're satisfied, Jake. My daughter is depressed and won't leave her room. You've destroyed a young woman's life over ancient history that should have been left buried. I didn't respond, but I wanted to point out that the ancient history was less than a year old and involved systematic deception, emotional manipulation, and attempted fraud. Also, I didn't destroy anything. I just provided information. Cassandra destroyed her own life with her choices. Robert, her father, apparently tried to get my home address from the courthouse records so he could have a man-to-man conversation with me about taking responsibility for my actions. Court security informed him that showing up at my residence would constitute harassment, and he'd be arrested if he tried it. The lawsuit was officially dismissed on Friday when they failed to secure new legal representation within the required time frame. But here's where it gets really interesting. Through some mutual connections in the Denver nursing community, I learned that Marcus wasn't the only guy Cassandra had been seeing during our relationship. Remember her study group that met every Tuesday and Thursday? Turns out there was a third nursing student, David Winters, who also thought he was in a developing romantic relationship with her. David reached out to Marcus after seeing his Facebook posts about the canceled wedding. Apparently, Cassandra had been telling David that she was single, but taking things slow because she'd recently gotten out of a toxic relationship. She'd been meeting him for coffee dates and study sessions while simultaneously engaged to Marcus and living with me. According to David, Cassandra had been hinting that they might have a future together once she finished dealing with some personal stuff. He'd been patiently waiting for her to be ready for a real relationship, not knowing that she was already in two of them. Marcus shared this information in a group chat with several of their mutual friends from nursing school. Word travels fast in small professional communities, and Cassandra's reputation is now completely toast. David also revealed something interesting. Cassandra had borrowed money from him multiple times over the past year. Small amounts, usually $200 to $500, always with some urgent excuse. Car repairs, medical bills, family emergencies. She'd always paid him back within a few weeks, but now he's wondering where that money actually came from. My guess? She was using money from me and Marcus to pay back David, rotating her financial manipulation between all three of us. Update 7. Monday brought yet another twist. I got a call from someone I hadn't heard from in over a year. Jessica Chen, my ex-girlfriend from college. Jake, this is Jessica. I know this is random, but I got the weirdest message from some girl named Cassandra asking about our relationship. What kind of message? She wanted to know if you'd ever shown violent or controlling tendencies when we dated. She said she was gathering information for legal purposes and that you were stalking and harassing her. I explained the entire situation to Jessica, who started laughing about halfway through. Oh my God, Jake. She really tried to paint you as some kind of abuser? You're literally the most gentle person I know. The most violent thing you ever did was that time you killed a spider in my apartment and then felt guilty about it for 3 days. She's been telling people I was controlling and possessive. You? The guy who encouraged me to study abroad even though you didn't want me to go? The guy who drove 6 hours each way to visit me when I was doing that internship in Grand Junction because you didn't want me to feel like I had to choose between my career and our relationship? People believe what they want to believe. Well, I shut that down real quick. I told her that not only were you never controlling, but you were probably too accommodating, if anything. I said if she was looking for character witnesses against you, she'd called the wrong person. Thanks, Jess. I appreciate that. No problem. But Jake, be careful with this girl. She sounded unhinged, like really unstable. The way she was fishing for dirt on you was creepy. That same afternoon, I got a notification that someone had tried to log into my social media accounts from an IP address in Denver. Then I got alerts that someone had attempted to access my email and my online banking. I immediately changed all my passwords and enabled two-factor authentication on everything. Then I called Tom, my lawyer. Tom, I think Cassandra might be trying to hack into my accounts. Do you have proof? Login attempts from her general area, all happening after she contacted my ex-girlfriend asking for dirt on me. Document everything. Screenshots, timestamps, IP addresses if you can get them. If she's attempting to access your financial accounts, that could be criminal. Wednesday brought the most disturbing development yet. My neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, knocked on my door around 7 p.m. Jake, honey, there was a young woman here earlier asking questions about you. What kind of questions? She said she was doing a background check for a potential employer. Wanted to know about your habits, whether you had parties, if you seemed stable. She had a clipboard and everything, looked very official. What did you tell her? I told her you were the best neighbor I'd ever had. Quiet, respectful, always willing to help with groceries. But then she started asking weird questions. Like what? Whether you'd ever seemed angry or aggressive. If you had women over a lot. If you'd ever made me feel uncomfortable. When I said no to all of that, she seemed disappointed. She was probably hoping you'd say something negative. That's what I figured. So I asked her what company she was with, and for some identification. She got flustered and said she'd come back later with her credentials. Haven't seen her since. I thanked Mrs. Rodriguez and immediately called Tom again. Now she's impersonating an employer to try to dig up dirt on me. This is definitely crossing into harassment territory. Agreed. I'm going to send a cease and desist letter to her and her parents. If she continues this behavior, we can pursue criminal charges. Update 8. Thursday brought the final confrontation I'd been dreading. I was getting home from work around 6 p.m. when I found Cassandra sitting on my doorstep. She looked terrible. Unwashed hair, rumpled clothes, dark circles under her eyes. She'd clearly been crying. We need to talk, she said when she saw me. No, we don't. You need to leave. Please, Jake. Just 5 minutes. I need to explain. Explain what? How you cheated on me for months? How you tried to manipulate me into attending your wedding? How you've been harassing my neighbors and trying to hack my accounts? She started crying. I know I made mistakes. I know I hurt you, but I never meant for it to go this far. What did you think would happen, Cassandra? Did you really think I'd just quietly watch you marry the guy you were cheating on me with? I thought you cared about me enough to want me to be happy. I did care about you. That's why this hurts so much. Then why are you trying to destroy my life? I'm not trying to destroy anything. I shared the truth with someone who deserved to know it. But now everyone knows. My family, my friends, my classmates, everyone thinks I'm some kind of monster. Maybe that's because lying to multiple people for months while manipulating their emotions is monstrous behavior. She got angry then. You don't understand what it was like. You were so safe, so predictable. Marcus made me feel alive, like I was special, like I was worth taking risks for. So you decided to keep both of us around until you figured out which one you wanted more? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain it to me. She was quiet for a long moment. Then I was scared. Scared that if I broke up with you, Marcus might not want a real relationship. Scared that I'd end up alone. You were my safety net. So you used me. I loved you. I did. Just differently than I loved him. You loved what I provided. Financial stability, emotional support, someone to fall back on when your real relationship hit bumps. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been ending our relationship before you started another one. Fair would have been honesty. Fair would have been not inviting me to watch you marry the man you cheated on me with. I wanted you there because you were important to me. You were a big part of my life. I was important to you, the same way a credit card is important. Useful when you need something, but not worth thinking about otherwise. She stood up then, and for a moment I thought she might try to get physical. But instead, she just looked defeated. I'm sorry, Jake. I really am. I know you probably don't believe me, but I never wanted to hurt you this much. The thing is, Cassandra, I do believe you didn't want to hurt me. You just didn't care enough to avoid hurting me. There's a difference. What can I do to make this right? Nothing. It's too late for that. The best thing you can do is leave me alone and get help for whatever makes you think this kind of behavior is acceptable. Are you ever going to forgive me? I thought about it for a moment. Maybe someday. But forgiveness doesn't mean I want you in my life, and it definitely doesn't mean I regret telling Marcus the truth. She left after that, and I haven't heard from her since. Update 9. It's been a month since the wedding that wasn't, and life has settled into a new normal. The cease and desist letter Tom sent apparently worked. Cassandra stopped the harassing behavior immediately. Last week, I ran into Linda, Cassandra's mother, at the grocery store. She saw me first and tried to duck into another aisle, but we ended up in the checkout lanes next to each other. Hello, Jake, she said quietly. Hi, Mrs. Thompson. She looked exhausted. I owe you an apology. That surprised me. You don't need to. Yes, I do. After everything came out, really came out, Robert and I had to face some hard truths about our daughter. We've been enabling her behavior for years. She paused, organizing her groceries slowly. The thing with David, the third nursing student? That wasn't the first time. We found out there was a pattern going back to high school. Multiple relationships, multiple lies. Always someone else's fault when things fell apart. We just kept making excuses, bailing her out, helping her start over somewhere new. I'm sorry you're dealing with that. We've gotten her into therapy. Real therapy, not just someone to validate her feelings. The therapist said she might have some personality disorder issues that need serious addressing. She looked directly at me. You probably saved Marcus years of heartache, and maybe you saved Cassandra from herself, though she doesn't see it that way yet. I hope she gets the help she needs. So do we. She touched my arm gently. I'm sorry we threatened to sue you. I'm sorry Robert called you vindictive. You were just protecting yourself and sharing the truth. We should have thanked you instead of attacking you. 2 days later, I got a text from an unknown number. This is Cassandra. I want to apologize. I stared at that message for a long time before responding. Apology noted. Can we talk? I'm in therapy and working on taking accountability for my actions. I don't think that's a good idea, Cassandra. I wish you well in your recovery, but I don't want any contact. I understand. For what it's worth, you were right about everything. I'm sorry for what I put you through. You deserved better. I didn't respond to that. Some bridges are meant to stay burned. Marcus and I have actually become friends. We get beers occasionally and laugh about the whole insane situation. He's dating someone new, a teacher named Sarah, who he met at a bookstore. She's never heard of Cassandra and doesn't care about any of the drama. Best relationship I've ever had, he told me last week. It's amazing how easy things are when you're with someone who actually tells the truth. As for me, I'm doing great. I've been dating someone for the past couple months, Emma, who I met at a rock climbing gym. She knows the whole story and thinks it's hilarious that Cassandra invited me to the wedding. She really thought you'd just sit there and watch her marry her affair partner? Emma asked when I first told her about it. Apparently. That's either incredibly naive or incredibly stupid. Why not both? The whole experience has actually made me more confident in my ability to trust my instincts. I spent so many months second-guessing myself when I was with Cassandra, wondering if I was being paranoid or unreasonable. Now I know that when something feels wrong, it probably is. My advice to anyone in a similar situation: document everything, trust your gut, and don't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for everyone involved is to tell the truth, even when it's painful. And always, always read the fine print on wedding invitations. Final update. Epilogue. 6 months later, life has moved on in interesting ways. I heard through the grapevine that Cassandra finished nursing school and moved to Portland to start fresh. Apparently, her reputation in Denver's nursing community was so damaged that she couldn't find work at any of the major hospitals. She's working at a clinic in Oregon now, hopefully getting her life together. Marcus graduated with honors and got a job in the ICU at Denver General Hospital. He and Sarah are talking about moving in together. He sent me a photo from his graduation ceremony with a note that said, "Thanks for helping me dodge the biggest bullet of my life." The threatened restraining order from Robert never materialized. The lawsuit cost them approximately $3,000 in attorney fees before it was dismissed for being frivolous. I still have the wedding invitation pinned to my bulletin board as a reminder that some people will try to manipulate you even when they're the ones who wronged you. But mostly, it just makes me laugh now. Emma thinks the whole thing is the best how we stayed together story she's ever heard. Your ex was so toxic that her behavior actually improved your dating life, she says. It's like the universe used her as a cautionary tale to help you appreciate a healthy relationship. She's not wrong. After months of gaslighting and manipulation, being with someone who's consistently honest and straightforward feels like a superpower. Tom, my lawyer, still brings up the case as an example of the most frivolous lawsuit I've ever defended. He framed the dismissal notice and hung it in his office. David, the third guy Cassandra was stringing along, ended up joining Marcus's friend group. They formed what they jokingly call the Cassandra Survivors Club. They meet monthly for drinks and share stories about red flags they missed. It's become therapeutic for all of them. The most satisfying update came from Jessica, my college ex who Cassandra had contacted for dirt on me. Jessica ran into Cassandra at a conference in Seattle and said Cassandra tried to approach her like they were old friends. She started talking about how much she'd grown since that whole misunderstanding in Denver, Jessica told me. Still playing the victim, still not taking real responsibility. Some people never learn. But here's the thing that surprised me. I don't hate Cassandra anymore. I'm not happy about what she did, and I don't want her in my life. But the anger has faded into something more like pity. She lost 2 guys who genuinely cared about her, destroyed her professional reputation, and had to move across the country to escape the consequences of her choices. Marcus put it best. She had everything she claimed she wanted: love, stability, a future with someone who adored her. She threw it all away because she couldn't stop lying long enough to appreciate what she had. My final thoughts for anyone who's made it this far: trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate it. Don't let anyone convince you that your concerns are paranoia or insecurity. Document everything in relationships with manipulative people. Screenshots, receipts, recordings when legal. Evidence protects you from gaslighting. Don't enable bad behavior, even from people you love. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the consequences of their choices. Healthy relationships shouldn't require detective work. If you're constantly wondering what your partner is,